One family's changed the course of Alzheimer's research forever. And as a result, they're changing the lives of millions of people, maybe even leading to a cure.
Yeah, Carol Jennings had a hunch that there was a family link when her father and then 4 of his siblings were diagnosed with Alzheimer's.
And the subsequent investigation into her family, which has been documented in a really good documentary on TV last night, ultimately led to a breakthrough and confirmed that Alzheimer's can be directly inherited.
Well, in March, Carol's own life was cut short by the disease, but she hoped her work might help her children who have a 50-50 chance of inheriting it. So, in a moment, we'll speak to her son, John, to find out whether he has taken the test, to find out if he has the gene. And we're going to talk to her husband, Stuart. First, let's have a quick look at the new documentary about them all.
And Carol's son, John, joins us from Edinburgh, and Carol's husband is here in the studio with Dr. Richard Oakley from the Alzheimer's Society. And we were just talking to Stuart that your wife died earlier this year. She'd had Alzheimer's for a good decade, but she knew the impact that she had had on research, on so many people.
Yeah, I think she would have been delighted to have seen the documentary. She sat with us as we saw the first cut, but she wanted to raise the profile. She was a very positive person. She always thought, what can I do next? And it was hard for her when she got the diagnosis, because she'd seen it with her father, she'd seen it with 4 of her aunts and uncles. So she knew what lay ahead. But that gave her such energy to be an advocate for both research and also for encouraging people to come forward.
Dr. Richard Oakley, how many people face Alzheimer's in their lifetime?
Well, there's almost 1 million people currently living in the UK with dementia, of which Alzheimer's disease is the biggest cause. It's actually a very small percentage of people that get this kind of directly inherited Alzheimer's disease, only about 1%. But I think what is truly incredible, what Carol and her family did, is it really showed that research can make a difference. Before that we weren't sure if it could be cured, and Carol was actually one of those people that made probably the biggest difference in dementia research of anyone.
Stuart, she was like an Alzheimer's detective, wasn't she? Because she spotted a clue and then got the scientists to do the digging.
Yes, and we forget that in the 1980s, when an expert spoke, people took it, and she had a number of requests turned away with the excuse, it's not genetic. But she was adamant, you know, it was too prolific in the family to be ignored. She'd got tremendous social skills, which helped. But it was an advert in the Alzheimer's Society newsletter that drew her to the dementia research team at St Mary's Then, now at the National Neurological Hospital, and she wrote with the family tree, and that really started it going. It helped that of course, doing genealogy, I'm a historian, so we did a lot of work for them before they picked it up. But we wanted to give as much information as we could.
You must be worried. Sorry, I was just going to ask. You must be worried, Stuart, because even though it's a small percentage of cases of Alzheimer's which are genetic, it clearly affects your family. We now know that. You have children. Do you want them to find out, your grandchildren to find out if they have the gene?
Well, they're always your children, but they're both adults now, and it's a decision they have to take in the light of their own plans and fears and concerns. Hopefully John will probably answer that better than I.
We can talk to John now, Stuart, because he's up in Edinburgh in our studio. And John, you must be so proud of your mum and also your dad, because their partnership has had such a big impact upon research and will change lives for people. But for you, I totally identify with your situation. My mum's had dementia for 20 years. You have a choice to make as to whether to have the test to see whether you have the gene passed down in your family, and it's a 50-50 chance, I think, broadly. And what decision have you made?
At the moment, it's a no, but I have swung from one extreme to the other. I got as far as going to see my GP and getting a referral to the genetics team. And then I went to the first appointment and chickened out. So I got very, very close a few times. But at the moment, it's a no. And the main reason is that chatting to the consultant, to the director of the Dementia Research Centre, actually, in the documentary, he was saying, what would you do differently if you knew that you had the gene? And I think some people say, I'd go on a round the world tour or that sort of thing. But the fact is, you're not given like a bag of money if you discover that you've got the gene. So your life can't change that much. And in all honesty, I actually don't want it to. Like, I really like my life at the moment. I've got a great job. I'm a great husband. I've got loads of friends. I don't want anything to change. And so in all honesty, at the moment, there's no positive benefit for me knowing. So I'm back in the no camp at the moment.
But John, do you think...
that could change depending on treatments.
But John, do you think, I mean, if you are kind of honest with yourself, do you think you are already changing your life anyway? Are you thinking to yourself, this might happen? You don't know if it will happen. You've not had the test. But if it does happen, you know what the consequences will be. So right now, with your wife, your kids, your work, your life, are you sort of changing what you do? Are you seizing the day? Are you taking advantage of every opportunity as it's presented now?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, it's really difficult for me to say what effect is this having on the way that I'm living my life, because it's always been there. And so a lot of people say, oh, this must be changing how you live day to day. And I'm sure it is unconsciously. But in reality, I do want to just grab every opportunity, and I do want to build strong relationships and sort of leave a bit of a legacy and all of that sort of stuff. So I think a lot of my friends say you sort of live as though you think that you've got it. And I think that is true, but not in a morbid way. Like, I'm not constantly thinking about my own death. I'm just kind of aware of the fact that it's going to happen, which maybe does sound a bit morbid, but that's not how it feels. Like, I just think we have to grab every opportunity when you can. I mean, Mum used to say that you could get hit by a bus, and I could tomorrow or today even. So I've just got to make the most of what's presented to me.
I apologise, John. I should have said your husband, not your wife, so I apologise for that. But I'm just going to ask Dr. Oakley, when John says there's nothing he could do, is that right?
Well, we know there's lifestyle factors, so Alzheimer's disease is genetic and lifestyle. So we do know living a healthy life, not smoking, drinking in moderation, taking exercise, these are all risk factors that can help moderate your chances of getting Alzheimer's disease. So there's absolutely things you can do. I mean, I'd look at Carol and what she did 30 years ago with funding from the Alzheimer's Society. She got involved in research. She took part of that. I know John is something he's doing as well. And dementia can be beaten by research. Research will beat dementia, and that's a really important message that the Alzheimer's Society wants to get out there.
Because one of the crucial things, apart from, of course, establishing this genetic link in a small percentage of cases, one of the crucial things that Carol did was it led to the development of drugs which may clear this amyloid protein plaque from the brain.
Absolutely.
If you take it, can you cure Alzheimer's? Or if you know you've got the gene, could you take it to prevent the Alzheimer's? Yeah,
they're fantastic questions. Curing is a very big word. I think what the data shows at the moment from the treatments that are being going through the approval process today, in fact, in the next month we should hear in the UK, is they remove amyloid and they slow down progression of the disease. That's what the data seems to imply. And what we do know, and what Alzheimer's Society talk about a lot, is an earlier and accurate diagnosis. So the earlier stages of symptoms, proving someone has amyloid and getting them on these treatments has the biggest effect and can delay the progression of disease. We believe the earlier you get given that treatment, the better it will be. And so that's why we're really excited.
And that's available now?
In the US and in Japan, it's going through the approval process right now. We should hear in the next month in the UK whether it's safe and effective and can be afforded by the NHS.
So, John, would that change your mind on getting the test then, if a drug is available which would slow
100%.
down? Yep.
100%, absolutely, because I mean, they know from researching families with dementia like ours that amyloid starts building up 10 or 15 years before you get symptoms. And so I would love to be on that drug right now, to be honest, if I knew that I had the gene. And if it was available to me, of course I would have the test. I would have the test for a positive reason. And I actually think, given that we know what causes Alzheimer's in our family, it's literally just that amyloid. I am really optimistic so optimistic about what difference it would make if we could get people on the drug 10 years before they start getting symptoms. But whether or not the NHS will fund that is a different question.
This is something that your mum has given us. It's an amazing thing. I wonder, Stuart, if Carol's looking down now and seeing you and your son on a BBC documentary, on Good Morning Britain Live in the television, what would she be saying? What would she say when you came off set? Would she say brilliant, or would she critique your shirt?
She'd probably critique my shirt. That's for sure. I mean, one of the reasons a documentary could be made is that Carol was so involved as an advocate, and those wonderful clips in the documentary just testify to how much she was in the forefront of advertising and encouraging. Yeah. She'd be delighted there's a drug available. Her one desire was that no family going through what we went through as a family. And she certainly didn't want her children or grandchildren to. This is exciting for everybody who's ever had an experience of Alzheimer's. At long last, we have a chance of some sort of therapy treatment. It's not a cure, but then again, I've had diabetes for 25 years. Can't be cured, but it can be controlled. And I see this new drug as having that same effect. But it's early diagnosis. You know, once the damage is done, at the moment we can't undo it. So early diagnosis is essential. So the Alzheimer's Society very much are encouraging and advertising people, if they are concerned, to get tested. We're looking at blood tests that will make testing easier and less intrusive. So Carol would be looking down and said, if you're concerned, see your doctor, get tested. There are drugs coming.
Yeah. It's such a cruel thing, dementia. It's so cruel and so hard to deal with. But in our family, we've dealt with it for a long time. But on behalf of the very, very many people in the country who are dealing with this, thank you to you, Stuart, and to Carol for the leadership you've given. Because you've shown the way and you've changed things, and that is how progress happens, for people like you being determined and doing it. So thank you.
Thank you.
Honestly, Carol's part of medical history, isn't she, Stuart? I just wonder if there are, as we know, there are 1 million people suffering, which means there are millions of others caring. Carol died in your arms just 2 months ago, 6 weeks ago. You cared for her at home, didn't you? You looked after her. You did a remarkable thing for the woman you loved. What would you say to all of those carers struggling right now?
I found that the only way I could continue, I mean, I had great support. I had a great care team. The local authority were good, giving me periods of respite. Respite is essential. If you become exhausted, you can't give the level of care that your loved one deserves. Do take that up as soon as you can. That really is important. And I found the way I coped was by focusing on what we had together, not on what we're losing. When I focused on what I'd lost, it wore me down. But when I focused what we had, it filled me with such gratitude. And I was able to see it through to the end.
It's brilliant you did.
Amazing.
For many people, it becomes impossible in the end to carry on what you're doing because it becomes too difficult or unsafe. But that is no failure. But the fact that you were able to be there with Carol to the end is a brilliant thing. And
you must remember, I'm younger. A lot of people caring with Alzheimer's are in their 80s, you know, and probably got health problems of their own.
Yes.
Yep.
So the younger onset does have some benefit, but it turns life upside down.
It does. It does.
Honestly, it's a privilege to talk to all of you. Thank you so much. And, John, thank you very much indeed. Just wonderful, positive news. And as, you know, just focus on the good. Stuart, thanks very much indeed, Dr. Richard Oakley and John.
Thank you.
If you're affected by those issues, you can find advice and support, itv.com/helplines.